CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
Our top story tonight, the bulls claw back on Dalal Street to snap a three-day losing streak. The SENSEX surges over 350 points to reclaim 27,000. The Nifty also gets back above 8,200. Brent crude remains steady around the $51 a barrel mark as investors continue to search for a bottom. But the euro tumbles and European shares rally thanks to strong hopes of a stimulus from the ECB. Wall Street is also rallying in trade. Police in France reportedly closing in on two suspected gunmen who killed 12 people yesterday at the Charlie Hebdo. The country is on the edge as reports suggest many mosques have been attacked. 7 people have been arrested so far. Former promoter of SpiceJet Ajay Singh submits a preliminary revival plan to the government. Sources say a final plan is coming soon as Singh promises to pump in some more funds before the 10th of January. SEBI moves to make follow-on public offers and rights issues more attractive. Floats a discussion paper to ease the rules and help companies access the markets directly without filing the draft offer document. The government steps on the gas to speed up the divestment drive. Plans to mop up at least 5,000 crore rupees by selling stake in exchange-traded fund of public sector enterprises. Oil Minister also refuses to rule out an ONGC sell-off this fiscal. Brokering a truce with Coal India unions, Piyush Goyal presents the 200-day report card of the Coal and Power Ministry, scraps the bidding process for 2 ultra-mega power plants, promises to ramp up coal production and thermal power generation. The Infosys stock ends a roller coaster ride with marginal gains ahead of the third quarter earnings for the company tomorrow. The street expects no fireworks as a CNBC TV 18 poll shows dollar revenues are set to rise by just 1%.
Inside edge, and he gets it. Another 100 for Virat Kohli. What a time he's having. Stick at the end of the bat. The outside Yorker. No! First ball is all there will be for Suresh Raina in his comeback.
Well, he's just 26 and Virat Kohli has already entered the territory of Don Bradman, India's new skipper, cracking his 4th century of the ongoing Australia series. He's now level with the original Little Master, Sunil Gavaskar. What's more, he's still not out. Good evening and thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. Hi, Surabhi.
Hi, Shireen. Well, that's not all. Kohli is breaking records and how? Let me tell you this. In fact, it's not just the cricket field. He is breaking all kinds of records and in fact now he's the most followed cricketer on Twitter with over 5 million followers, and guess what? That's even more than Sachin Tendulkar.
Well, that's quite a tall task then. It was not just Kohli. Young KL Rahul also slamming his maiden Test 100, and their heroic achievements on the field have lifted the spirits of investors on Dalal Street, which is our starting point tonight on India Business Hour. So let's get down to it. The bulls have finally found their feet on Dalal Street. The market snapping their three-day losing streak, surging on the back of strong global cues. The SENSEX rallied over 350 points today, reclaiming the 27,000 mark, as the graph will show you. The Nifty also got back above the 8,200 level after cracking a century this afternoon. Let's talk about the mid-caps, because the mid-cap index today managed to outperform the blue chips, gaining over 200 points. Anuj joins us now to wrap up the day's trading action. Anuj, centuries for Kohli and the Nifty.
Well, indeed. But you know what? The market hit, the SENSEX rather hit a triple century today, and the Nifty also hit a century. So great going for all the indices. The Bank Nifty, in fact, was up 400 points in today's trade. That led from front, and you had advance decline ratio of about 5:1 in today's trade. Let's talk about the stocks that led the market. In terms of contributions, financials were right on top. Not in terms of percentage gains, but in terms of index contribution. ICICI was up 3%, HDFC 2%, and HDFC Bank up about 2%. FMCG stocks, field day for all of them, led by Asian Paints. That was up 6%, was easily your stock of the day. ITC and Lever also up about 2% in trade today. Then, of course, you had some other prominent Nifty winners in trade today, DLF, BPCL, and KN India, most of it on account of short covering, especially KN India. Then, of course, you had cement stocks that also rallied in trade today, ACC, Ultratech, Ambuja, all were higher in trade. In terms of mid-cap stocks, defense stocks look quite good today. So Walchand Nagar was up 13%, P-Power was up about 18%, and of course we had a stock like HMT that was up 17%. And finally, some more mid-cap winners in today's trade included stocks like Berger Paints that was up 10%, Delta Corp up 7%, and TVS Motor also up about 6% or so. The jury is still out on whether the rally that you saw today confirms the end of the downtrend. But for now, at least, there's a belief that maybe we might have made a bit of near-term bottom at around that 8,000 mark.
We can actually use all these, the policy environment which is changing and also the global liquidity that is there and stimulate demand in the domestic environment. I think India can put its act together in the next year or two. And you should see a higher tick-up in earnings into 2016 and 17 there onwards. This year, it will be fairly muted. So if I just move into 2015 and some part of 2016, I just put it in between 11 to a 14% growth rate over the next 2 years.
The theme for India in terms of supply-demand for equities is the demand delta is going to be much more significant from domestic institutions, and we see domestic institutions as being the key driver of equities in India in 2015.
All right, so that's a positive outlook coming in from JP Morgan. Let's move on. Crude prices have been holding steady in trade today. Brent has been around that $51 a barrel mark, while NYMEX has been hovering around 49 or so. So you can see a minor dip now on Brent. It's the colors changed to red for the time being, but NYMEX is still holding on to some gains. Meanwhile, the Indian crude basket has fallen to $46.97 per barrel. That is a drop of $2.25 compared to the previous trading day. And this, of course, according to an exchange rate of 63 rupees 45 paise to the dollar. Shri?
Well, let's talk about the big global story then. Surabhi, the police in France reportedly closing in on 2 suspected gunmen who shot 12 people dead at the offices of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo in Paris. The police in France have claimed to have made 7 arrests so far. Overnight, one of the suspects in the shootout, 18-year-old Hamid Murad, reportedly surrendered. There's also been a fresh firing in South Paris, which has left a policewoman dead. There are reports that several mosques have been targeted across the country. France is also observing a day of mourning today, and the Eiffel Tower in Paris will go dark later tonight. CNBC's Hadley Gamble filed this report a short while ago from Paris.
A manhunt is currently underway in France. That's against the backdrop of a national day of mourning. What we understand is that 2 of the suspects have been spotted at a gas station in North France. That's about an hour outside of Paris. A 3rd suspect turned himself in overnight. There have been members of their families who were questioned overnight as well. We also understand that a separate attack this morning has now been labeled as a terrorist attack as well. 1 policeman was left dead. Another was wounded, but there has been no link as yet between the 2 attacks. But again, this would make 2 terror attacks in 24 hours. Paris is a city under siege.
All right, now this unfortunate development in France has not really dampened trading sentiment. In fact, there's been a smart rally playing out across Europe. The FTSE, the DAX and the CAC have all been up between 2 and 3%. In fact, if we see gains right now, the French markets are the ones that are roaring the most, over a 3% gain there on the CAC. It's not just the core. A similar picture in the periphery as well. The Italian MIB and the Spanish IBEX now on our screens. A 3% move in Italy and an over 2% gain on stocks in Spain as well. No respite, however, for the currency. The euro still struggling below 1.18 as all eyes are now on the ECB as markets await more stimulus to be announced later this month. And that, of course, playing out in Wall Street trading action as well. Big rally across the board, over a 1% gain on all the key indices on the back of more stimulus hopes from the ECB and the Federal Reserve.
So all of that will bode well for our markets when we open for trade tomorrow. Good global cues coming in. But back home, hope is in the air for cash-strapped SpiceJet. The airline's former promoter, Ajay Singh, today met with the aviation secretary and submitted a preliminary revival plan. Sindhu joins us now with the details. Sindhu, Ajay Singh has been in conversation with the promoters of SpiceJet, the Marins, as well as the Civil Aviation Ministry. We understand that he is also in talks with private equity giants, putting together a consortium. They may have already invested some amount of money into the company. What does the revival plan that he submitted to the Aviation Ministry today say, and how soon can we see any further fund infusion?
Senior ministry officials are saying that investments are definitely on track. As soon as the first tranche of investment comes in, SpiceJet has been asked to give fresh bank guarantees for, remember, it has dues of up to 200 crore to Airports Authority of India, which has been not hounding it because the government asked AAI to back off. So the first thing that SpiceJet has been asked to do is give some fresh guarantees for the Airports Authority of India dues. Oil companies are anyway giving it on cash and carry, which is on payment basis, the fuel that they're giving to the SpiceJet aircraft. So by 10th, the first tranche of investment is expected to come in. As of now, SpiceJet is doing about 200 flights a day, and from the look of it, the deal between the Marans and Ajay Singh seems to be taking off. Earlier, we had heard that the Marans wanted to exit the airline completely. They have over 50% stake in the airline. We had also earlier heard from sources that Mr. Singh and his consortium could bring in up to $200 million in all. Whether this takes care of the liabilities of the airline, that remains to be seen. But fresh money is definitely going to help the liquidity crisis that SpiceJet has been going through. Back to you.
All right, Sindhu, thanks so much for that. Let's get some more aviation news going then. The chief executive of Qatar Airways has said that the company is extremely interested in picking up 49% stake in Indigo. He also said that Qatar Airways has a very keen interest in the Indian aviation sector. However, he's ruled out buying stake in SpiceJet or in Go Air.
Well, Indigo is not up for sale and is not looking for a strategic investor, so Qatar can keep hoping. Now, less than 24 hours to go before a new airline takes to the sky. The Tata Singapore Airlines joint venture Vistara's maiden flight takes off tomorrow with flights to Mumbai and Ahmedabad from its Delhi base. This will also mark the return of Tata's into the full-service space.
Moving on to some news coming in from SEBI, the market regulator has issued a discussion paper on revisiting the capital raising process. It has invited comments on the issue and has made some proposals to fast-track the new changes. Prerna Barua is here to take us through the details. Prerna, what did you pick up?
Well, that's right. The market regulator is looking to fast-track capital raising route via FPOs and rights issue, as SEBI has observed that existing listed issuers have preferred the private placement, including QIP route, versus the FPO or a rights issue due to the shorter time frame and lower cost associated with it. Now, SEBI plans to relax the average market capitalization of public shareholding requirement between 250 to 3,000 crore rupees in order to enable more companies access the market directly without filing the draft order document. But it will have certain conditions, like promoters will be required to mandatorily subscribe to rights issue. Now, the second proposal is to make use of the secondary market infrastructure for making applications in public issue, especially for eIPOs, and thereby reducing the timeline and reduced cost as well. SEBI is looking to reduce the post-issue timeline from the current T+12 to T+6, and once the listing process stabilizes, the timeline would be further curtailed to T+3 or even 2 days. Now, this will shorten the time duration considerably from issue closer to listing as well. Now, the regulator also looks to expand the use of applications supported by blocked amount or ASBA via the depository participant or registrar and transfer agents for IPO participation. Public comments has been sought till the end of this month in order to revisit the capital raising process. Back to you.
All right, Prerna, appreciate you joining us. That's the latest there from the market regulator. On to Deal Street now. The merger between ING Vysya and Kotak Mahindra Bank has got the green signal from shareholders of both banks. Lata joins us now to take us through the details. Lata, there was really no issue that was expected on the Kotak end. There was speculation that there could be trouble on the ING side, but both sides, the shareholders giving the green signal and the stock soaring on the back of that.
Yes, there was every reason for Kotak and ING Vysya Bank's shares to rise today, because finally the shareholders of both banks approved the merger. For Kotak it was never a problem, but for ING there was noise that the merger ratio was not entirely to the advantage of the minority shareholders of ING. Some employee shareholders had expressed their trepidation. Also, it is 67% of those present and voting who have to approve the merger at the EGM. ING itself, although it has 40% stake, got only 20% of the votes because of the rules of the Banking Regulation Act. The remaining 50%, 45% had to come from minority shareholders. There was a bit of a fear. With that coming, there was every reason for shareholders to bid up that shares today. The analysts of both companies had expected Kotak to benefit significantly from the merger, and the price target had been raised to about 1,500 rupees. But since November, when the merger was announced, ING has risen about 30%, and Kotak Mahindra Bank shares have risen already about 23-25%. Further immediate rallies may not be called for because the EPS additions are going to come only in FY17 and FY18, when the strengths of the two banks will be leveraged. Therefore, perhaps for the moment, the rally is more or less over.
All right, Nada, thanks so much for that. Let's move on to the other stories we're tracking this evening. Faced with a daunting fiscal deficit target, the government is planning to speed up its divestment drive. Today, the oil minister offered hope over the ONGC stake sale. He said that a subsidy sharing formula is being worked out and did not rule out a divestment of the oil major this fiscal. Sapna Das is here with more details. What have you picked up for Sapna? We've been hearing about the subsidy formula in the works for a long time.
Well, if you hear out Mr. Pradhan, it seems that they might announce the subsidy sharing formula pretty soon. His indication was at the earliest, so probably they could actually come out with that in the current month itself. That should set the house in order in terms at least of the ONGC disinvestment, because he did indicate that according to the Petroleum Ministry, it's very much on the radar as of now. However, the timeline will have to be indicated by the Ministry of Finance. In the meanwhile, there are also a couple of companies that the government may be looking at in terms of divesting stakes, some more oil companies for FY15. This is what we learned from the divestment secretary. However, the question here is that would they have the time to take the cabinet approval for a new proposal at this point in time? Probably the government may also like to keep the couple of these companies as part of the FY16, that is the next financial year's action plan. Apart from this, what is now going to happen is that next week onwards, the REC PFC roadshows are beginning. Jan 12 to Jan 16 is a timeline the government is looking at as of now. There is no timeline as of now on the actual stake sale. That's a call that it will take only once the roadshows are over. So 5% in PFC, 5% in REC, roughly around 3,000 to 3,400 crores is what the government expects to rake in if you look at the current market price. Apart from that, they also have another mechanism in terms of the CPSE ETF. This is already an ongoing model. So there could be a possibility that the government might like to actually push that slightly further and increase its stake sale via the ETF model. They have a flexibility of going up to 3% of each of those 10 PSU stocks which are part of the basket. Last but not the least, and the most important probably, could be Coal India. Now that the strike has been called off, and that was a pretty early settlement, the hope is there that probably before February they should actually go through with this issue. At least one big issue is what a lot of people are expecting in the month of January. It totally depends on the finance minister, what is the final call that he takes. Would he like to keep it limited to only smaller companies and probably the CPSE ETF, because then they can't meet the target, or Coal India might actually see the light of the day, and possibly some movement on ONGC once the subsidy formula is announced. In the meanwhile, let's just hear into what the oil minister, Mr. Pradhan, had to speak on this subsidy sharing formula and how quickly the government can come out with it.
It's not only for ONGC, it's for all sectors.
Right.
Oil is there.
Right. Oil and ONGC.
Subsidy sharing.
Right. So by when can we expect government to take a decision on this?
Looking into the new economic price regime of the world market, Government of India is also planning to have a revised subsidy sharing formula. Let's see, it can come out at an early stage.
Sometime this month or likely next month?
No, we should have an early decision. Let's see. I've already talked to Honorable Finance Minister, and he's looking into the issue. Right. Something will come out.
That's the oil minister emerging after meeting with the finance minister. Remember, the need for a new subsidy sharing mechanism or a formula has been a promise that this government has made when it came to office. And 7 months down the line, we still don't have one. But My sense is that one is imminent because of where crude prices currently are, and ONGC has been sending SOS after SOS to the government requesting for a change in the subsidy sharing formula because of the cost of crude. And at this point in time, if the government wants to do the ONGC disinvestment, it has no choice but to put in place a new subsidy formula. But a day after brokering a truce with the unions at Coal India, Power Minister Piyush Goyal presented his ministry's 200-day report card. While the focus is on improving coal production and attracting investment, Goyal has abandoned the bidding process for 2 ultra-mega power projects. Anshu Sharma and Malvika Jain get you that story.
That's a relieved coal and power minister. All smiles a day after he successfully managed to convince Coal India unions to withdraw their strike. This comes as a relief for power companies and the disinvestment department, which is hoping to push through a 10% stake sale in the company. While addressing the media to mark the achievements of his ministries in 200 days, Goyal said the government has aborted the bidding process for the 2 UMPPs in Odisha and Tamil Nadu. The private companies which had participated in the first round of bidding for both the UMPPs withdrew their bids, citing difficulties in securing finances.
Both these UMPP bids have been aborted. However, we are quickly reviewing the entire situation. We are consulting experts in this field and may soon be setting up an expert group to examine the documents.
The highlight of the 200-day report card is the improvement in thermal-based power generation, which is up by 15.8% between June to November 2014. The power minister has also set an ambitious target to double coal production to 1 billion tons by 2020. The power minister also stressed on the need to restructure ailing discoms.
One will have to look at a calibrated, a little more longer-term plan, sustainable plan, and a plan which genuinely addresses their difficulties and sees how in a year-to-year basis we first bring down their losses physically in terms of energy and financially in terms of money, and then takes it into a profit-making mode.
On the renewable side, Goyal expects investments of about 10 lakh crore in the next 6 to 7 years and easier financing to meet the ambitious renewable energy target of 1 lakh megawatt for solar and 60,000 megawatt for wind power by 2022. In New Delhi with Anshu Sharma, Malvika Jain.
All right, moving on to some other stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the 13th edition of the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, a celebration to mark the contribution made by non-resident Indians. Addressing about 3,000 delegates in Gandhinagar, the Prime Minister told NRIs that India is now full of opportunities and that they will be welcomed with open arms.
जब हमारे पूर्वज गए थे संभावनाओं को तलाशने के लिए, अब भारत की धरती पर संभावनाएं आपका इंतजार कर रही है। भारत एक नए सामर्थ्य के साथ उठ खड़ा हुआ है और विश्व भारत के प्रति बहुत आशा भरी नजरों से देख रहा है।
Prime Minister there wooing the NRI community. All right, moving on. Third quarter earnings season will kick off tomorrow with IT major Infosys announcing its numbers. Kritika Saxena now joins in with the details on what to expect. Kritika, this time around, I don't think the street is going in with the Infi earnings expecting too much, right?
Well, yes, big boy Infosys will have a big day tomorrow, but it may not be a great one because remember Q3 is a seasonally weak quarter with a lesser number of working days and cross-currency headwinds. Add to that, TCS has already indicated a sluggish quarter in the mid-quarter report, so there has been a sense of sluggishness in the market. If you look at the numbers now, we are expecting a growth of around 1% in dollar revenue terms. This is significantly lower than the 2.5% expected in constant currency terms. On the rupee revenue front, we are expecting a growth of around 3.3% as you can see, and in net profit we are expecting a marginal growth of around 1.9%. Now, when you look at margins, we are expecting a flattish margin, so we are expecting margins to come in at around 25.95%, a marginal decline over there. Margins will be relatively flat, largely owing to pressures that the company has seen in terms of realization and of course lower utilization that the company has been seeing. But you know, the big counter that we are watching out for is the guidance. Now remember, Infosys for FY15 had guided for around 7 to 9% in a constant currency terms. We are expecting them to cut guidance to 6 to 8% or maybe 6.5 to 7.5% depending upon what SICA has in mind and the visibility that they are seeing in the coming quarter. More importantly and lastly, we are expecting, of course, some kind of clarity when it comes to a mid-term strategy for Infosys, and yes, SICA is likely to outline that. So big day tomorrow, but you know, we're actually watching out for a strategy more than the numbers because Q3 will, of course, be seasonally weak and the market has been.
All right, Kavika, thanks very much. So earnings season kicks off with Infosys tomorrow. Can Vishal Sikka bring a surprise is the question. Staying with the IT sector, reports of widespread layoffs at tech giant TCS have created some waves despite the company denying reports. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, NASSCOM defends TCS and insists that nothing unusual has happened and that it will look into the matter if it escalates. Listen.
Certain amount of churn for various reasons does take place, and you are aware that there are certain industry norms. What we understand is that nothing of a unusual or extraordinary level has happened. If there is something which needs attention in a particular company, I'm sure that that company will address that. But as I said, this is a sector in which the companies have to show and have shown nimbleness and adaptation.
Well, we leave you now with cartoons from around the world. The attack on satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo's only managed to unite cartoonists across the world. Let's take a look at the tribute.